Hi, this is Darren from SimNation. Just continuing the Draft Day Sports Pro Football 2023 new slash existing coach videos to help talk about the game and get people acclimated to it. Of course, Draft Day Sports Pro Football 2023 is a Wolverine Studios title. They have their summer sale going on right now. And if you're interested in getting either the college game or the pro game, uh, $20 off. Now's a great time to get it. Go to wolverinestudios.com. I don't get anything from it. They're not sponsoring me. But I will tell you the title's worth it in my eyes. Um, if you do want to join an online league, I would ask you to think about SNCFL, which is the college game, and then WWPF, which is the pro game. The SNCFL does feed into the WWPF. So let's continue on talking about this game. Today we're going to talk about depth chart and packages and how to do matchups. So, for those who are not aware, um, depth chart is where you set the players that will be on the field. You have 4 packages that you can choose. You can choose what these packages mean to you, but really what a package is the players that will be on the field whenever you select one of these packages. So there's a whole bunch of different ways to do this. One is that you set it for run and pass. Another way is to set 2 for run, 2 for pass. Well, the second one for run is you rotating players around or to either keep them fresh or just to create matchup issues. Or to keep the CPU from keying, and you do the same with pass. Some coaches actually make the package, and you can set it right here, by the way, typing aligned to a playbook. So they would go to strategy and they would say, like, I want to have a formation that will cover pit wide open. And so I'd go back to depth chart and I would choose pit wide open, name this pit wide open, and that is the depth chart for that playbook. Now, the key here is, regardless of how you do it, is understanding where the players are on the field. Uh, so the first thing that I would say about depth charts is, and a lot of people I think get this wrong, um, is if you don't know what wide receiver 1 is and wide receiver 2 and wide receiver 3 is and where they are on the field from a positioning perspective, you are really going to struggle and you're going to lose. It's the most common mistake that I see a lot of coaches making when they first begin, is thinking that wide receiver 1 is covered by cornerback 1. Or that wide receiver 2 is covered by cornerback 2. Don't fall into the trap. They are not. Wide receiver 1 is traditionally your left right receiver. So what that means is on defense, the right cornerback is defending wide receiver 1. And for wide receiver 2, that's traditionally your right wide receiver, which means the left cornerback is traditionally guarding them. So what that translates into from a matchup perspective is wide receiver 1 is covered by cornerback 2. Wide receiver 2 is covered by cornerback 1. And you'll have the same dynamic when you talk about wide receiver 3 and wide receiver 4, because wide receiver 3 is the left internal wide receiver. Wide receiver 4, of course, is the backup to wide receiver 1, and that is the right internal wide receiver, which means that when you talk about the nickel backs, because it's a mirror arrangement, right? The left wide receiver 3 on the inside is actually being covered by nickelback 2. So just keep that in the back of your mind as you go through it, because it will really completely blow your mind. And when we talk about defense, you're going to see it as well, is because like defensive tackle 1 is the left defensive tackle 2 is the right defensive tackle. So just as you go through this, knowing where players are on the field is very important. And the easiest way to know this is go to this, is look at formation view, and it will tell you exactly this. Now, I really hate that they do this, right, with wide receiver 2, wide receiver 1, wide receiver 4, wide receiver 3, because the reality of it is Krugel is wide receiver one. And he's not wide receiver two. Just this will get it even more confusing when we talk about playbooks because based on play percentages, it can really screw you up if you don't know what the player was doing on that play and the percentage of times that they're doing it. But let's not go too far down that rabbit hole. So again, packages can be used for a lot of different purposes. I use them to rotate players on and off the field to keep people fresh. So I have run play one, which is my starters, pass play one, which is my starters for pass plays, and then I have run play two, which is the people who are rotating on to keep people fresh. So generically speaking, I've had more success by not rotating certain people. Like I don't rotate my quarterback. I do rotate my running back. I do rotate my fullback. I do rotate my wide receivers, my tight ends. I do not rotate my offensive line because traditionally I try to get people who can do both. Now, if you're struggling and you're noticing that you're not doing really well on running plays and you're trying to use a similar approach to me, the key here is making sure that these positions actually have the right people in them that can run block. Because this is for running plays, Lewis Krugel, and because I love running to the left, which Lewis Krugel is on the left, I'm going to have him on the left. If I'm playing two tight end set, what I want to make sure of is understand who is the left tight end. Again, it's not the right tight end, it's the left tight end. So in this case, if I looked at my tight ends, I'd be like, okay, if I'm running to the left on two tight end formations, I need to make sure that Stephen Bohm is tight end two on run plays, and James Salter is tight end one, so that anytime someone goes right, he's the one blocking. Now, the reality is I mix up my run plays, so I don't predominantly run to one side or the other. So it doesn't matter as much to me, but traditionally I will always make sure my best run blocker is on the left because I like going to the left. The left is also the weak side, meaning that the tight end is traditionally on non two tight end formations. There's no tight end on that side, so the wide receiver is going to have to block. Uh, so I traditionally will put the best wide receiver blocking wise on that side because if I do go to that side, I need to have someone who can block. Uh, I think the other things just to keep and bear in mind is on defense, again, same thing, right? If you're not sure about where people are lining up, just click on it and then you can quickly see who's doing what. So what you see is the left defensive tackle is defensive tackle one. I believe that's right. And then the right defensive tackle is defensive tackle two in a 4-3. So um, it's a little confusing because one of the things I don't like is I really wish they would have just aligned these or just call this left and right. I know why they didn't because defensive tackle one, defensive tackle two is because you may not have uh, two defensive tackles on the field at any given time. And sometimes you'll have three if you're playing a 5-2. But if you're playing a 3-4, you only have one defensive tackle on the field unless you're putting them at an end position. Playing people out of position is not something I traditionally will recommend, especially on the line. But there are people who've done it successfully, so just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Playing people out of position when it comes to nickel backs, strong safeties. I do that all the time, and I do it fairly successful. Like Juan Finley is an ungodly fast linebacker. He is a 93 speed. There are times where I will actually play him as a nickelback, or I'll play him at strong safety if I'm going against people who are fast. So just keep that in the back of your mind is that traditionally I would say don't try to play people out of position, but if you have to deal with somebody who's fast or deal with someone who's highly agile, it's okay because the penalty you're probably going to incur is going to be a lot less than the speed gap you're going to have to deal with, or the agility gap, or the strength gap you're going to have to deal with. Um, so we talked about matchups already. I'm not going to bring that up again. Um, But I think the key here is for me is on defense, I just rotate people to keep them fresh. Though people will play 3-4-4-3. And what I'm traditionally doing is, in this case, I'm assuming I'm playing Arizona. So what I had decided to do is, after looking at their team, I had noticed that the the right guard uh, wasn't someone who I could um, blow past, so I could outstrength them. So I put Catalina over there because he's my strongest guy, whereas I put Baines on this side because I needed someone who's faster and a little bit more agile. Which means that if I'm playing off strength, that Cosgrove would be the backup, and then in this case, Drake would be the backup there. And then what I've said is that I need probably my best defensive end on the right side because the left tackle is really strong, just in blocking, speed, strength. Whereas on the opposite side, the right tackle is slow, so I can use Perry to blow past him. And if you look at Perry, Perry's exceedingly fast for a defensive tackle. I mean, he's got wide receiver speed. And then the same thing I did for the linebackers. So again, the depth chart is all about matchup. So if you understand the corresponding that if on offense somebody's on the left side, that means on defense, the person lining up against them's on the right side. So you just want to make sure that you're lining up correctly because I see a lot of people go, well, I put my best players in these positions, and then when they show it to me, I'm like, well, you had them on the wrong side of the field. So yeah, they blew past you because your best play was actually on the wrong side of the field to be able to stop them. So just make sure you factor that in. Now, formations or the packages here, the percentage of the time that that package will be in play is actually set under formations. So for offense, it's run and pass. So that's the amount. Whenever you choose a run play, this will determine the package frequency. So in this case, 75% of the time when I run the ball in an I formation, it's going to use package 1. 25% of the time when I run the ball in an I formation, it's going to use package 2. So just however you choose to do it, just make sure it corresponds appropriately here. A little trick here is if you want to set things, just bear in mind, like if I wanted to zero that out and go with that, it would look like that. That'll take it back up to 100, and then I can do that. So now on defense, it works differently. It's less than 6 yards or greater than or equal to 6 yards. So if you struggle with the direction of symbols, you may have a little bit of issue there. But again, when you're setting your defensive packages, just make sure that you're setting them appropriately based on less than 6 or greater than and equal than 6, understanding that people can run in past less than 6 yards. They can likewise run the ball greater than 6 yards. So don't try to just say if it's greater than or equal to 6, I'm just going to have a pass formation and I'm just going to run that all the time and make sure I have my best pass people on. You're going to probably run into some issues because some people like me will say, okay, it's 1st and 6 or it's 2nd and 6. I'm still going to run the ball because I have a really good running back who I can jam down your throat. So just keep that in the back of your mind as you go forward. I think the other thing just to keep in mind is if you choose to use offensive backups and you choose to use the in-game logic to control your rotation, first of all, on both offense and defense, there's this thing called offensive backups. It's not situational, it's just these are the backups who will come in when the backup logic triggers. And the backup logic is controlled right here. So if it's a blowout, in my case, if I'm blowing out by more than 42, then the backups will come in. Or if the energy setting, if the person gets the 60, they'll come out and they won't come back in until 85. But it's going to pull whoever that person is off the offensive backup package in depth chart. I don't do that again. I use the packages to actually rotate my people. So that's kind of it. I think the key takeaways for this video are going to be uh, when you set your depth chart, determine which positions you want to rotate and not rotate. Determine who's best for that situation. And again, that's what packages are really meant to do, is be for more situational player changes. Um, and also just make sure you know what things correspond to. Like, the fact is, when you see wide receiver one, it's traditionally the left wide receiver. When you see wide receiver two, it's traditionally the right wide receiver, which means when you're doing your game planning, you're trying to create matchups, you need to make sure that you understand that the left wide receiver corresponds to cornerback two, who is the right cornerback, versus the left quarterback corresponds to wide receiver two, because that's going up against the right wide receiver. So just make sure you understand that. And then again, with packages, just make sure you're setting the right percentages, and that you are really maximizing the matchups in the best way possible. So if you're going to use one of the packages for run plays, make sure you put your best run blockers on the field. If you're going to use another package for pass play, put your best pass players on the field. Same thing would be for defense. If you're going to try to use it to block against the run, make sure you have the right run players on, and so on. So that's it for now. The next video will focus on offensive game planning. I'll go into playbooks and also just how I go about determining what my offense should look like and what I think the other team's defense is doing. And then I'll follow that up with a video about defensive game planning, uh, which both of those videos will probably be a little bit longer. So hopefully you find this valuable. If you do, drop a like. Otherwise, let me know if there's a topic you want me to cover. And I hope you have a great night. Thanks.